Because of the fact that we in the United States engage in mass incarceration, what you see is entire communities where the majority of the men, and again mostly men of color, mostly poor men, are pulled out of those communities and pulled out of those families.
It's a national phenomenon. We're taking lots of parents away from kids, and everybody walks around keeping it a big secret.
People can be bad citizens and still be great parents. And I think that's a concept that the public has a hard time with.
Can you imagine coming home and your parent isn't there? Can you imagine only hearing your mother's voice through a telephone and seeing her through thick glass? Can you imagine being told that your parent is a bad role model? This documentary was created by youth with formerly incarcerated parents and is made to open up eyes about how incarceration has affected the lives of families. This film was meant to give back the voice that was once taken away. People don't seem to notice that young people didn't do the crime but yet face the biggest punishment of all, of not having a parent to lean on.
I didn't know what was going on. I just know that my father wasn't there.
Out of nowhere, my mom didn't come home after work, so I just thought she was gonna come back the next day or something like that. But time passed and she just didn't come home.
I remember not seeing my mom for like a good week. Then it was the moving point. I didn't know what was going on. I was like 6 or 7 and everything was moving too fast.
I remember asking what happened and my dad looked really red and shaking a lot.
And when I get back to my house, it's straight ransacked. Like they tore up the whole house, and I'm like, yo, what happened?
My father moved back to Texas from California, and it wasn't until a few years later that we got in touch with his side of the family, and they told us that he was in prison.
I wasn't taken away from my family or anything because my mom was still, was still active. She was still home, so.
My grandmother and my grandfather told me that she was working in Puerto Rico as a real estate agent.
I get a phone call and then she's like, Michael, come to the phone. My grandmother got this weird accent, so I'm like, okay. I go to the phone and it's my mom. I'm like, hi, how you doing? Why you not here? What's going on with this? And then she still didn't explain anything to me, not at all. Like, it was kind of funny how I found out. Like 2 or 3 days later, my grandmother has her door closed. And I don't know, I just like to sneak around the house. So I stood there and I heard everything, saying how they're trying to beat the case and blah, 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 how they're gonna give her this much time and all this other crap. And I'm just sitting there like, what?
She would call every day, or I would go visit her every other weekend.
My mom had to do everything. That's what changed. I would say financially things changed a lot. I no longer had anything I wanted, so I had to adjust to that.
Yeah, I actually remember the first time I went to visit her, she got fatter.
I don't remember. Like I said, I was 6 years old, so I don't remember what that first conversation was like. All I know is that I was going to see my father, and my grandmother was sneaking chicken and macaroni and cheese in the visiting room.
My father is incarcerated in Texas State. The first time I visited him was when I was about 12 years old. At that time, it was just, more about seeing Daddy. The fact that he was in, all white really didn't, interfere.
We had to wake up very early, and then next thing I knew, I was riding on the bus. And I was like, what was going on?
When we got there, it was usually always dark. We would have to take off our jackets and go through a metal scanner. And then we would go to this cell room where we would just talk to her. But I couldn't touch her because we were separated by a glass.
Since then, as an adult, going back to visit, when the visits have not been, as happy, being treated like a prisoner, myself, not being treated with respect, not being spoken to with respect.
You could not go and sit where the inmate was. They wouldn't allow you to, because they probably thought that you was giving them something. Like, I think about that now, but when I was little, I didn't care. I just wanted to sit on my mom's lap and hug her.
I think children are traumatized when their parents are arrested. And then from what I've seen, there's continual trauma. That is, lots of times families or social workers don't want to take them to go visit their parents, or there are long, horrible bus rides up to the Canadian border, or sometimes correction officers aren't so good to them.
Most prisons are located in very rural areas, very far away from where the majority of people are incarcerated. And this is a phenomenon across the country.
And then they go to school on Monday, and the emotions are gonna show. And when children of divorce go to school on Monday and they act out, teachers say, oh dear, he was with his dad this weekend. But they never in a million years would say he shouldn't visit his dad. But when children of the incarcerated go to school and show their feelings, teachers, guidance counselors, and principals start to say, I don't think they should take her to visit that prison.